how powerful is Sargeras? So, how powerful was he? If we were to come face to face in a battle with Sargeras, would we even stand a chance? What's good, gamers? Aquilon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. Today, that is the question we seek to answer. Sargeras is arguably the most ancient of antagonists in World of Warcraft, being around pretty much, I believe, since the beginning. I know for a fact since Warcraft 2, and there's been many writings about him, but his core canon has pretty much been established since the beginning. Very little has changed with this Titan. Things have been added over time, but very little has been taken away. Much like all other Titans, Sargeras is rumored to have been born inside a world as a world soul. Once he hatched or was mature enough, he would join the other Titans on the Pantheon. Now, there, he is said to have been so powerful and so noble that the Titans announced him or preferred him as their defender. In fact, he was given the title of defender. His role was to go out into the galaxy and find any resistance to the Titans' mission of bringing order to a very chaotic galaxy. Now, it is in this that Sargeras' first real battle emerges, and it is against the demons. However, these battles will do nothing to answer our question of just how powerful Sargeras is, because the problem is, Sargeras dispatched of these demons relatively quickly. So, in an argument of can he kill demons, the answer is yeah, he can. He did it for thousands of years, and he became quite proficient at it. What is it telling, and what we would need for our analysis of how powerful Sargeras is what Sargeras did during his fights with the demons. In these years, these thousands of years with these battles against the demons, Sargeras started to show his real traits. In other words, the strategist within him. Unlike many of the other Titans that do not seem to question and instead just act. If you want to know more, just look at Azeroth when they found the old gods. Without question, without answer, they literally just ripped Sargeras out of the planet and almost killed the planet in the process. Sargeras shows a much more keen eye to detail, and in this he shows the first real power that he possesses, which is strategy. You see, Sargeras listens, he pays attention, he notices things, and it is said that from a very early point in his battle against the demons, he had a sense that there was something bigger going on there. Something more powerful was behind these demon incursions. Eventually, he would start noticing that some of the demons were using powers that were not of demonic origin, but instead of void origin, which then further led him to ask questions and wonder about things. However, things would actually come to a head when he finally arrived at a planet completely infested by void energies. And this is where we truly see Sargeras' character come through. Rather than immediately acting, Sargeras discovers a small enclave of Nathrezim that is hiding on the planet, and he starts to interrogate them. He wants to know exactly why they're hiding, because he's seen the Nathrezim before, and they don't strike him as fearful. Instead, they strike him as pretty brave and very intelligent, and yet they seem very afraid of the demons or the things on this planet. They would be the ones to tell him about the old gods and the void lords and about the ultimate plan to corrupt a nascent titan. This would be the seeds of his downfall, but this video isn't about his downfall, so we're not going to go too deeply into that. But again, it highlights a part of his character, a characteristic of Sargeras. He isn't hot-headed. He takes very good care when he makes his decisions, and he tries to think through every single available avenue. The problem is he arrives at a very weird conclusion, a conclusion that logically makes somewhat sense. If there are no life, or if there is no life in the great beyond, the old gods would have nothing to corrupt. If the old gods actually managed to corrupt the Titan, according to the Nathrezim, this Titan would be so strong that none of the Pantheon would be able to stand against him. So you can see his logic there. The risk versus the reward is just too great, which again shows us that there is a highly intelligent being within Sargeras. But his intelligence starts to show even more as he now goes back to the Pantheon. He gets rejected there and he goes, well, fuck you guys. I'm off then. and he goes and he lives his best life with his newfound demon army, the Burning Legion. Here we start to see knowledge that Sargeras possesses that is never actually expressed or explained to us where he got this. But he crafts weapons like Ulthalesh, the Deadwind Harvester. Ulthalesh, a weapon that seemingly mimics that of a rune weapon, or a Mournblade, rather. Where did he get this knowledge? Well, the answer to that may actually lie in another one of Sargeras' real strengths, and that is the Twisting Nether. And we actually learn about the Twisting Nether and the powers of the Twisting Nether from Akari, the assassin, the chosen champion of Sargeras. After Sargeras formed these blades that would make Akari one of the most powerful assassins in all of the Great Beyond, Akari does a couple of missions for Sargeras and then requests to be set loose in the Twisting Nether to gather knowledge. Akari comes back with, well, knowledge. The fact is, Akari learns that the real art to war isn't just the unseen assassin. Yes, the unseen assassin can achieve much, but the unknown assassin is the real one to worry about. Now the reason I put the Twisting Nether as one of Sargeras' greatest powers, or one of his powers at least, is that where did that knowledge come from? The Twisting Nether is said to be this highly chaotic place where basically just demons roam around and kill each other. How could one glean knowledge from such a place if that place maybe isn't what we've been told? Now, we already know that the Twisting Nether offers some strategic advantages, and this is probably why Sargeras chose it as his home base. You see, the Twisting Nether screws around with time a little bit. A year in the Great Beyond can be tens of thousands of years within the Twisting Nether, depending on where in the Twisting Nether you are. This gives you a massive strategical advantage because you have 10,000 years to plan your assault, to prepare for your assault, while your enemies only have a year. Now, this will be pertinent, but not quite for the reasons you think. Because even though Sargeras does have the sheer numbers, he still chooses to use other strengths of his far more often than the strength in numbers and the ability to just overwhelm his enemies. Now, his first battle where we would see some of his power manifest, but also limitations to that power, would be with Agrimar. When Agrimar discovers that Sargeras had killed a Constellar, Agrimar comes to confront Sargeras. And a massive battle breaks out, where the battle ultimately ends when the swords that they were using explode, shattering Sargeras' blade and sending both of these titans basically home limping. Agrimar would go home to tell the other titans what Sargeras had become. They would be outraged, and they would eventually challenge Sargeras at a world known as Neolis. At Neolis, the titans would first try to reason with Sargeras, and again, one of his core characteristics comes out: curiosity. You see, Sargeras knows the titans are there to stop him, and yet he chooses to listen. In fact, they say that he listened carefully as Agrimar and the other titans told him of Azeroth and of the power that Azeroth has. And as he listened, he would eventually come to a conclusion that what they viewed as the savior of the Great Beyond would actually be its downfall, because if the Void is truly trying to corrupt a Titan, and that corrupted Titan would be unstoppable by the other Titans, then why wouldn't they try to corrupt the strongest Titan that the Pantheon has ever encountered? This just further strengthens his resolve that Azeroth must be stopped, and he would ultimately go to battle, right? First, Agrimar would approach him, and he would cleave Agrimar in half, and then the other Titans would fight him. The problem here is, you might say, well, Akelon, clearly, he fought all of the Titans at once and won. Well, yes, but also that's not necessarily indicative of his power levels. The problem with that is Sargeras at this point is already infused with Fel. Titans have a natural weakness to Fel. So the problem is that they were basically coming to, a gunfight with water shooting guns or shit. I don't know what you call those. The guns that shoot the water, the pew pew ones? Yeah. That's what they brought to that fight. Sargeras made quick work of them and then declared the victory, and off they went. Now, let's talk a little bit about Sargeras' powers as we reach the conclusion of this video. First, we know that he can create worlds. He's done it a few times before, and we know that Titans in general can create worlds, so this should not come as a surprise. Even Argus, to some extent, is ordered, I guess, in a way, by Sargeras. He has telepathy, right? So he can communicate telepathically. He does this multiple times. Medivh is a great example of him doing this. He even communicates with his spies telepathically. So really, distance isn't a problem to him. Illusion is another great strength of Sargeras. He does this with the Eridar first, appearing to them as a being of light. He also does this on Azeroth, right? Where he appears as different beings depending on what is required in order to get them on his side. Now, here's where things get really scary with Sargeras. No mortal weapon can wound Sargeras. In fact, mortal weapons seem to be completely incapable of doing anything. You'd take your axe, you'd hit him on the toe, he'd just look down and he'd flick you away. It doesn't do shit. Even immortal weapons, i.e. very special weapons like Broxigar's Axe of Cenarius, only managed to scratch Sargeras, and from what we know, not to the greatest effect. So, if there are weapons, the World Soul, for example, was completely useless. It didn't do shit to him. The Demon Soul, sorry, not the World Soul, the Demon Soul did absolutely nothing to Sargeras. So, immortal weapons, mortal weapons, none of these weapons have any effect on him. Now, this could be just due to him being a Titan, although we know that Agrimar was a Titan, or Argus was a Titan, and our weapons and attacks absolutely did do damage to Argus. I think it may have something to do with something that Sargeras found in the Twisting Nether. Either some kind of spell, some kind of infusion process, but something he did made him immune to pretty much all attacks. Then, of course, we also know that he has immense strength, cleaving a planet into not for the faint of heart, cleaving a Titan into, as he did with Agrimar, also not for the faint of heart. And it's even said that Sargeras was so strong that he may actually have outmatched all of the Titans of the Pantheon put together. So their strength combined would not be strong enough to take down Sargeras. Now, the other thing is the demons, even the strongest among them, like Manaroth, for example, they are considered to be wholly incapable of even standing against a fraction of Sargeras' power. And then the hidden magical abilities. There are a couple of times where Sargeras would use arcanic runes, especially with Illidan. He also manages to cast spells through fire towards Illidan. He has magical abilities, although many of these abilities have not been canonized and have only been rumored to be usable. But it has to be because he has this ability to craft magical weapons, like the Fangs and Ulthalesh, the Deadwind Harvester. These weapons would require at least some knowledge of magic and of how magic works. Now, again, you could argue, well, Akalon, he's a Titan. Of course he knows how magic works. It's the whole arcane thing. And you would be right to some extent. But that's also now twisted with the Twisting Nether and the foul energies of the Twisting Nether. So there's a whole new bag of tricks that Sargeras has access to that we may actually see one day in an actual face-off against Sargeras. In conclusion, I don't think Sargeras' greatest strength is his strength. I don't think that's what makes him so powerful. I think Sargeras' greatest strength is his cunning and his intelligence. While he has the ability to completely overwhelm an enemy and send just numbers and numbers so great that no one would be able to stand against it, he oftentimes chooses not to. He does do this from time to time when the goal is simply to subjugate and destroy. But when the goal is greater than that, when Sargeras really cares, for example with Azeroth, here he cares about what Azeroth is. He wants to know before he acts. He employs cunning. He employs curiosity. He employs intelligence. He thinks, he looks, he influences, he moves. Chess pieces on a chessboard, consistently strategizing in order to make his victory more known. The final bit that proves his strategic mind would be that of the creation of the Lich King. He is told by the Nathrezim, his servants, by the way, that This armor, this helm, and this sword is so powerful that it will give him Azeroth on a silver platter. All he needs to do is announce a general, a hero, a champion that could take up these weapons and forge ahead. Sargeras clearly had questions. Clearly, Sargeras did not trust what the Nathrezim were telling him. He sensed something in these weapons. He wanted to use their power, but he also wanted it limited. And thus, he instructs to give the helm and the sword to Ner'zhul without a body. His soul would be tied to this helm and to this sword. He would be incapable of moving against Sargeras and thus be forced to do Sargeras' bidding. Now, this shows an immense amount of insight. The Titan does not just trust what people tell him. He has the ability to spot when things are being moved against him, and we now know that these weapons were ultimately not meant for him. They were meant for Zuvul. And that, I think, is the true power of Sargeras. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below if you think we could take Sargeras in a 20v1 battle in Mythic raiding. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Then, of course, if you want to keep this channel free from sponsorships that want to sell you stuff that you do not need, ladies and gentlemen, $1 a month over on Patreon will get that done. As always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I shall see all of you in the next one. Peace.
You are not prepared.